the two aspects that I find helpful in considering our practice is the one I talked about this morning, um, trusting in awareness, knowing that you know. Now it's the knowing. It's like this, Penyang Ni Eng, all of that different language, which to me is pointing to one thing. It's the awake consciousness, knowing the way things are in a very silent manner, with no comment, no criticism, no judgment, or knowing that. And then the other aspect of that is the open heart or the relaxed mind. And if you look at the literature of like Western monks teaching now, Luangpor Viradhammo will say receptive awareness, relaxed attention. You'll find relaxed alertness, welcoming, a different language around the same idea that the awareness is not being applied to a particular object or situation or experience. It's simply abiding as a very relaxed, open, awake consciousness. All those words. And that should point to just one thing. Um, and so the relaxed part is sometimes I personally, I think of it as the open heart. So when I when I recollect someone that I love and maybe they're having some illness problems, and then I just recollect and I feel the heart and say, oh, may you be well. So that openness of the heart is the aspect that I am thinking of. And then also like relaxed attention would be around desirelessness. So non-becoming, non-resistance, non-distraction, desirelessness. And now hopefully you have your own words to encourage yourselves with that in Thai or in Singaporean. Um, and again, you know how I like I like words which have that reflect for me, in this case, an attitude. Again, I use a lot of language around the three tanhas. So non-becoming has become a very, very helpful tool in gauging the attitude I have in this present moment to the way things are. Non-becoming. Okay. And that's not an analytical statement. It's an attitude, a kind of way of being. Non-resistance took off it. Now I'm resisting. Non-resistance is an attitude to maybe coughing or something in the body, or sound or a memory coming up. Non-resistance, not trying to get rid of anything. And then non-distraction, really being with the way things are. Just those three. So does that kind of use of language make sense to you? Do you have a language that do those two ideas, do they resonate with the way you practice? One idea of awake consciousness, the other idea of receptive consciousness, rather than, what should we call it, assertive or organizing consciousness or controlling consciousness in a different way. So receptive in that way. So this text is it's from about 10th century, which is a long time ago, for those who are counting. It comes from West Bengal, in the Pala Kingdom. Pala Kingdom, I think, was one of the last royal Buddhist kingdoms in India. And so it's East Bengal, which is now Bangladesh. And Bangladeshi language actually has a lot of Pali in it. Usually we think of Bangladesh, because of modern history, as Islamic. in tones. You know, or I thought the language was Arabic or something like that. But actually, it has a lot of Pali. And I just did a retreat, and Larry was there, in Ontario, and I read from this poem. And there's a Bangladeshi man that Moon who comes on these retreats every year. And it's a similar kind of group, smaller, but quite dedicated folk outside Ottawa. And then he came up to me, said, you know, this poem, we read it in high school. I thought, wow, how cool to have this kind of thing in high school. I thought, very impressive. So even though it's a Muslim culture, in their in their background, they really, I guess, they really respect their Buddhist history. Um, but that's an aside. And now this will have language which won't be familiar to you. So it'll have more kind of Mahayana ways of talking. And I think this is also, so we'll do this as a meditation, and I'll try to read this without coughing too much. And but I think it's also a good exercise in listening. So if you are to the lawyers that we have here, if you're trying to understand this as a legal document, you know, then you'll be thinking, or to our business friends, if you're looking at it as a business contract, then, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? But may I suggest that you don't worry if you don't understand a particular word, don't get stuck there. So it might be an interesting exercise in listening with the heart rather than listening with the intellect. Maybe not. Maybe you'll just feel confused, or maybe you'll understand the whole thing. I'm not sure, but um, oftentimes, sometimes if we're too intellectual when we hear Dhamma talks, we hear a word and we think, "What is that word? And what does that mean?" Blah, blah, blah. And actually, we're no longer listening. We're talking to ourselves. And what's the point of that? But and so you in the way Luangpor Chas, if I remember correctly, he said, listen with your heart rather than with your head. So this is Tilopa's song to Naropa, and there is a lineage of Mahayana teachers. Tilopa, Naropa, Marpa, and Milarepa were a lineage of teachers, and Milarepa was already in Tibet. So sometime in those 200-300 years, there was a great exodus of Buddhist teachings, monastics, that went up I think, into the Tibetan plateau, if I have it right. But its origins were in East Bengal and then in southern India before that. So the word that's used here is Mahamudra. And Mahamudra, I take as awareness. So when you see that word, I mean, that's my sense of that kind of what I'm trying to point to, this awareness which is receptive and allowing. So when you hear that word, just substitute that in it if you get confused. But try not, again, just let it wash over you. And if you don't understand anything, just not understanding feels like this, you know, then you'll be fine. This is a safety valve. And then to see how it affects you. And if it affects you peacefully, great. And if it affects you like, what the heck was that about? Great. You know, if it affects you well, then accept it. If it doesn't affect you well, then accept it. So the beauty of our practice is that we're not asking for any affect, but sometimes suggestions about relaxing attention are I find, very important and helpful. What else so I think, so Mahamudra is the main word that keeps coming up in this piece. Yeah, so I think that's sufficient. Yeah. So let's just take a meditation posture. I'll read it quietly with minimal amount of coughing, I hope. And then I'll just keep sitting to the end of the sitting in quietness. So So. Come on. Let's take a posture that is comfortable. Close your eyes. Listen to sound. Notice the changing nature of sound. Tilopa Sangta Naropa. Mahamudra, the royal way, is free from every word and sacred symbol. For you alone, beloved Naropa, this wonderful song springs forth from Tilopa as spontaneous friendship that never ends. The completely open nature of all dimensions and events is a rainbow always occurring, yet never grasped. The way of Mahamudra creates no closure. No strenuous mental effort can encounter this wide open way. The effortless freedom of awareness moves naturally along it. As space is always freshly appearing and never filled, so the mind is without limits and ever aware. Gazing with sheer awareness into sheer awareness, habitual, abstract structures melt into the fruitful springtime of Buddhahood. White clouds that drift through blue sky, changing shape constantly, have no root, no foundation, no dwelling, nor do changing patterns of thought that float through the sky of mind. When the formless expanse of awareness comes clearly into view, obsession with thought forms ceases easily and naturally. As within the openness of universal space, shapes and colors are spontaneously forming, although space has no color or form, so within the expanse of awareness, realms, relations, and values are arising, although awareness possesses no positive or negative characteristics. As the darkness of night, even were it to last 1,000 years, could not conceal the rising sun, so countless ages of conflict and suffering cannot conceal the innate radiance of mind. Although philosophers explain the transparent openness of appearances as empty of permanent characteristics and completely indeterminable, this universal indeterminacy can itself never be determined. Although sages report the nature of awareness to be luminosity, this limitless radiance cannot be contained within any language or sacramental system. Although the very essence of mind is to be void of either subjects or objects, it tenderly embraces all life within its womb. To realize this inexpressible truth, do not manipulate mind or body, but simply open into transparency with relaxed, natural grace. Intellect at ease and silence, limbs at rest and stillness, like hollow bamboos. Neither breathing in nor breathing out, with the breath of habitual thinking, allow the mind to be at peace in brilliant wakefulness. This is the royal wealth of Mahamudra, no common coin of any realm. Beloved Naropa, the treasure of Buddhahood belongs to you and to all beings. Obsessive use of meditative disciplines or perennial study of scripture and philosophy will never bring forth this wonderful realization. This truth, which is natural to awareness, because the mind that desperately desires to reach another realm or level of experience inadvertently ignores the basic light that constitutes all experience. The one who fabricates any division in consciousness betrays the friendship of Mahamudra. Cease all activity that separates, abandon even the desire to be free from desires, and allow the thinking process to rise and fall smoothly as waves on a shoreless ocean. The one who never dwells in abstraction and whose only principle is never to divide or separate upholds the trust of Mahamudra. The one who abandons craving for authority and definition and never becomes one-sided in argument or understanding alone perceives the authentic meaning hidden in the ancient scriptures. In the blissful embrace of Mahamudra, negative viewpoints and their instincts are burned without remainder, like camphor. Through the open door of Mahamudra, the deluded state of self-imprisonment is easily left behind forever. Mahamudra is the torch of supreme liberty shining forth through all conscious beings. Those beings constituted by awareness who try to ignore, reject, or even grasp awareness inflict sorrow and confusion upon themselves like those who are insane. To be awakened from this madness, cultivate the gracious friendship of a sublime sage of Mahamudra, who may appear to the world as mad. When the limited mind enters blessed companionship with limitless mind, indescribable freedom dawns. Selfish or limited motivations create the illusory sense of imprisonment and scatter seeds of further delusion. Even genuine religious teaching can generate narrowness of vision. Trust only the approach that is utterly vast and profound. The noble way of Mahamudra never engages in the drama of imprisonment and release. The sage of Mahamudra has absolutely no distractions because no war against distractions has ever been declared. This nobility and gentleness alone, this nonviolence of thought and action, is the traceless path of all Buddhas. To walk this all-embracing way is the bliss of Buddhahood. Phenomena on every plane of being are constantly arising and disappearing. Thus they are forever fresh, always new and inexhaustible. Like dreams without solid substance, they can never become rigid or binding. The universe exists in a deep, elusive way that can never be grasped or frozen. Why feel obsessive desire or hatred for it, thereby creating illusory bonds? Renounce arbitrary, habitual views. Go forth courageously to meditate in the real mountain wilderness, the wide open Mahamudra. Transcend boundaries of kinship by embracing all living beings as one family of consciousness. Remain without any compulsion in the landscape of natural freedom, spontaneous, generous, joyful. When you receive the crown of Mahamudra, all sense of rank or attainment will quietly disappear. Cut the root of the vine that chokes the tree, and its clean tendrils wither away entirely. Sever the conventionally grasping mind, and all bondage and desperation dissolve. The illumination from an oil lamp lights the room instantly, even if it has been dark for eons. Mind is boundless radiance. How can the slightest darkness remain in the room of daily perception? But one who clings to mental processes cannot awaken to the radiance of mind. Strenuously seeking truth by investigation and concentration one will never appreciate the unthinkable simplicity and bliss that abide at the core. To uncover this fertile ground, cut through the roots of complexity. With a sharp gaze of naked awareness, remain entirely at peace, transparent, and content. You need not expend great effort, nor store up extensive spiritual power. Remain in the flow of sheer awareness. Mahamudra never accepts nor rejects any current of energy, internal or external. Since the ground consciousness is never born into any realm of being, nothing can add to or subtract from it. Nothing can obstruct or stain it. Where awareness rests here, the appearance of division and conflict disappears into original reality. The twin emotions of anxiety and arrogance vanish into the void from which they came. Supreme knowing knows no separate subject or object. Supreme action acts resourcefully, without any array of instruments. Supreme attainment attains the goal without past, future, or present. The dedicated practitioner experiences the spiritual way as a turbulent mountain stream, tumbling dangerously amongst boulders. When maturity is reached, the river flows smoothly and patiently with a powerful sweep of the Ganges, emptying into the ocean of Mahamudra, the water becoming ever-expanding light that pours into great clear light, without direction, destination, division, distinction, or description.